Hello, 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 and welcome back to the Bucket Bros. I'm your host, Ronnie West. With me, as always, is the man, Mr. Bobby Marcico. We're
What's
here to
up?
kind of, we apologize. We have fumbled the bag the last couple of weeks. We've had some trips, we've had some family deaths. There's been a lot of stuff going on. But we're back. We're excited to talk basketball with everybody. Bobby, how are you doing? Are you ready to give some people some basketball nuggets that they're looking for?
Yeah. It's been too long. I mean, the amount of things that has happened since we've last chatted. I mean, we could run down the list if you like. There's so much to catch up on.
No,
Obviously,
that's
we're going to
another.
be jumping into the finals mostly here.
Yeah.
So yeah, we won't bore you guys with old details, but yeah, I mean,
No,
let's catch
here.
up. Let's catch it up.
Yeah, let me catch myself up and get the graphics. Here, let's get into some fast break news. All right. So, unfortunately, our first basketball. I should have grabbed my ball. The Timberwolves fall to the Thunder in 5 games. It was just one of those, just didn't work out. So let me pass it on over to you, Bobby.
Yeah, and the Pacers. They stole a game from the Knicks, but they closed out that series strong. Definitely the better team win as they've made their way to the finals. And so far, 1-1.
Yeah, and off of that crazy instance in New York, the coach Thibodeau is fired and ousted. It's a kind of a controversial take. A lot of people thought he should be there. Some people thinking it's the players. Who knows? We'll get into that one.
Well, actually, I wanted to butt off of that. And, on top of that, so thus far, the Knicks have been reportedly denied being able to interview Jason Kidd, Ime Udoka, and Chris Finch. So, but like you said, we'll certainly be talking more about that this offseason. And then, as that's happening, all the trade chatter is ramping up for KD, with Shams announcing that there's 5 teams leading the way to land him in a trade. Although, with further investigation, it looks like the Spurs might actually be the front runners thus far.
They are for everything. It seems like that. Anybody, if
Mhm.
you're in Texas, you got good things coming to you. And one of the other last things for me that I'll mention, it's been 25 years for the people of Indiana waiting for an NBA Finals, even longer for my people in Minnesota. But cheers to you, Indiana, tonight. You get to cheer on your guys for the first time in a long time.
Well, I mean, with that, I guess let's jump into some finals talk.
Yeah, indeed. Uh, So, as you mentioned, we can kind of catch some people up. The first game, we had the big, once again, the Halliburton like magic. It almost seems too good to be true. He gets the game one winner, and then SGA and Co have kind of come back. Had a good run in game two. So it is like you mentioned earlier. It is tied 1-1 in the NBA Finals as they move back to Indiana. What are some of the things that have jumped out to you? What are you seeing that not everybody else is noticing?
Well, I don't want
Or
to.
we
I don't
can
want to
back
just.
up, or we can talk about last year's. Where do you want to get going? Sorry, I didn't mean to
No,
specifically
I,
put you in one spot.
no, that's okay.
Don't
I
put
don't.
Stevie
I
in
was
the
just gonna say
corner.
I don't want to discredit the fans for all 5 of you out there. I don't want to discredit you guys and tell you that maybe you haven't noticed, but it sort of feels like game two was basically they just ran back game one, except they got it right this time. I mean for OKC, both games so far have been fairly dominant, but as you mentioned, Indiana, just sort of like the wave of magic that they seem to come at you with, capped off with yet another Halliburton game winner or game tire, another clutch shot from Halliburton, this time decided the game.
The thing that I wanted to at least make a point of was the fact that yes, Halliburton made that shot, but the fact that they stayed in it, and it wasn't just him making all those shots, and that's why I felt there was probably a lot of undue, and you might be getting into this, a lot of and who knows what your actually thoughts are. We didn't really talk much about it. Like undue criticism for Halliburton for not taking more shots when to me that's not his game. He's not someone he might drive and get a shot, but he's someone who's going to have 13, 14 assists. And I think he still had some decent numbers. But yeah, to me, it's looking so similar to the what they did to the Timberwolves that honestly it's making me feel a little bit better after getting dismantled the way they did. So I'm really hoping that the Pacers can make it competitive, like you said. But it's like you said, the Thunder have just been so dominant in both of these first two games.
Yeah, their defense is no joke. Certainly, they were on full display against Minnesota, and they haven't skipped a beat since then. I've said this before. I think that game, that 7 game Denver series, was a very essential hill for them to climb and overcome. And it's I mean, looking back, it makes you think just how insane Jokic is that they were able to take it to 7 compared to how the rest of the playoffs has gone for OKC. So hats off to them, but I ultimately do think the better team win. Obviously, the championship favorite won, and yeah, they haven't slowed down since then. I still don't think anybody has scored in the paint against those OKC since they faced against Jokic. It doesn't seem that way anyway.
Yeah.
And
There's
I
like
mean,
6 guys. Well, and it's also the one thing I had to after going through the Wolves series. Yes, and granted, this will be the last Minnesota talk of it. The officiating, the fact that Lou Dort and Alex Caruso could guard so much more aggressively than Jaden McDaniels or Nikhil Alexander Walker could, to me, drove every Minnesota fan, and I think that just has to be noted. The way that those were two different types of play calls and the way that they were officiated to me made a big difference. So yes, SGA being able to get to his spots and hit those shots, that's hard. But some of the way that it was officiated just seemed like it put different things in unfair advantages. And yes, I'm going to say there's possibly conspiracy theories out there when we have the Mavericks with the #1 pick. So who knows what's out there? It's still been compelling and fun to watch, and obviously the ball still has to go in the hole. So to me, that's where that goes. I apologize. I'm off of my rant for the time being.
hmm. I might give you a little bit of pushback on that just because, yes, they play tight, but I mean, the refs have been letting these guys beat the crap out of each other this entire playoffs. I feel like we're seeing maybe a little bit of correction in the
No,
finals, which I've mentioned that before,
it's
but
only SGA.
this,
Everybody else has been like can handle those hard fouls. It's any time that he's near any kind of decent contact that's like everybody else, they're swallowing the whistle. So that's
I
where
say maybe he gets like a 2 or 3 a game that are a little bit absurd, and they tend to
stuff.
come in runs, which makes you want to pull your head a little bit more. So while there does seem to be a slight advantage, I think it's let's not undermine what he is doing because, like you said, you got to put the ball in the basket, and thus far he's been doing it better than anybody else throughout this playoffs. I mean, and it's not like OKC doesn't foul guys. If you have a clear look at the basket, that's what they do. They hack the crap out of you. They make sure that you don't watch the ball go in. They if they're not able to actually just stop the 2 point attempt in general, then they're gonna play the mental game too, and they're gonna make you get 2 at the free throw line. So I mean, with Caruso playing like regularly like low 20 minutes and getting like 5 or 6 fouls a game, they're calling fouls on him. He does get calls. So, but yes, they do get to play aggressively. And you know what? I think they earn that. I think they earn that style of play.
Okay. No, that's fine. There's one thing I did want to ask you that obviously they made a big talking point in on the calls, and I'm curious to know if it's bled over or you're noticing it in the Pacer game. And it was the depth of where they were picking SGA up defensively. So in the first couple of games, there was the issue of hard to control him, but they were trying to stop him like right over half court. And it was more of, I guess, being afraid of his 3 point shot and then all of a sudden deciding not to be afraid of it. So then they were defensively, they weren't picking him up at in outside of the 3 point line. Jaden would get up and wouldn't start actually guarding him until he was crossing into the 3-point lines. Have you noticed that at all, or have I thrown a complete curveball at you?
Well, with the Pacers, and they've been doing this a lot throughout the playoffs, they tend to put full court press on, especially in the second half. They
Okay.
typically will start the second half with their defenders, starting 94 feet away from the hoop that they're defending. And yeah, they certainly. I mean, it's not like their energy levels have let up, and it's not like the Pacers are a bad defensive team by any means.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a bit of a strength in numbers type of style, but I mean, they have a handful of select defenders on the court that are even giving SGA trouble. It's just that the Thunder have done a really good job setting screens to get those guys to pick those guys off. And one of the points I was going to get into was that I think that the Pacers can do a little bit of better job fighting through the screens, a lot like the Thunder players do. I mean, they make an art form out of it when they're on defense, and so yeah, I mean, I'd like to see Nemhard get over those screens a little better. Siakam get over those screens a little bit better. I guess we can just launch into talking about SGA and how he's looking this series right off the bat. Obviously in this last game, he had a very efficient game, very strong playoff game. He had, I believe, what was it, 38 points, or sorry, 34 points on 21 field goal attempts. Pretty spectacular performance. It looked like he was able to just weave to every single one of his spots every single time. I would say save the only times he seemed to get a little bit flustered and ended up coughing at the ball was when Nemhard was on him, and Nemhard's been a brilliant defender for Indiana, especially throughout this playoffs. And then certainly some possessions where Siakam, and then occasionally I'll even throw an Obi Toppin in there would kind of give him a little bit of trouble not going for his fakes, using their length to help close up the space. But once like SGA got Ben Mathurin on him, who I generally think of as like a for his athleticism, I generally think of him as a able defender. But once SGA had those guys on him, he was looking hungry and just like immediately getting shots up, getting the fouls called. Um, yeah, yeah. I mean, he has looked amazing by having his 35, 4.5 rebound, 8 assists, 4 steal game. He's definitely put himself in very rare company, being able to pull something like that off.
Yeah, to me that I think it was the issue in the second game. I think they mentioned it like where TJ McConnell was like the leading scorer. And to me that might be of concern. And to me, do you and I'm looking at the points, I don't know what he had in game one of Miles Turner only with like 16 points. Do you think that he needs to have a bigger role to kind of be a feature in this? Because obviously you can have like a win by committee, and obviously if Naismith and Nemhard are going to shoot who knows how many threes, it's like that's not something that you can rely on every night. Whereas that inside presence and some of his outside shooting has sometimes faded away or is taken away from, maybe by trying to find the right guy or trying to work the system. Maybe because that was the one thing I was thinking of. It's like if Halliburton's not going to be your primary shooter, and that's I guess the thing with the Timberwolves, like the KD talk and all that, like who else? And it's obviously it. Like I'm not going to go off on the Wolves, but it's to me like where the Pacers they need someone else that they can rely on to get to the hole. I know that's something I've preached most of the year, and I know they aside from Halliburton, and yes, I know you kind of rolled your eyes because they have probably one of the most premier people to get to the hole. And so, to me, is there somewhere or a way for Miles Turner to be a bigger part of the offense than he already is?
So, I mean, Miles Turner, obviously, he's a pretty good, versatile offensive player for, 6'11" center and a guy who can also, claim that he's a three-point shooter and also be a rim protector. You know, I, I don't know that I would consider him my most versatile guy. Sometimes he'll put the ball on the floor. Sometimes when there's a mismatch, he'll gosh, what's the word? He walls off the guy to make sure that he gets good position on the inlet pass. And I've seen him do that a handful of times throughout this playoffs. But I mean, so okay. So a few things. Halliburton, when he scores, I forgot what the number is, but I saw this stat recently. I think the cutoff is like 22 points. When he scores like 22 points or greater, the Indiana Pacers have an exceptional winning record. It's like their offense really does rely on him being a scorer, but he's having a hell of a time trying to get good looks
Yeah.
trying to get good looks this series. And hats off to Lou Dort for giving him trouble. Big surprise, one of the best defenders in the NBA is given Halliburton a lot of hell. But and so I noticed even these past couple games, like if Siakam isn't getting a look around the hoop, like nobody is. It's basically Pascal Siakam putting pressure on the rim, and I couldn't name you a second guy who's doing that
Mhm.
equally as well. I would say that in the first game, he hasn't been a super high scorer throughout these past two games throughout the finals. But T.J. McConnell, he's been a good stabilizer for that bench unit because he allows them to often. You say strength in numbers. He's one of those numbers. He's one of
Yeah.
those guys that allows them to win or at least not lose those bench minutes. And in game two, OKC was having none of that. He wasn't getting great looks, and then so see we've covered Turner on offense, Siakam on offense,
Well,
Halliburton,
no,
um,
yeah, no, I guess
McConnell.
it's obviously they're in the NBA finals. This is something that's worked for them. I guess it's more of this win by team committee and then let Halliburton do it because you've done this team game throughout and gotten back together or gotten back into the game and made it close to give your star a chance. So yes, the
Yeah.
formula has worked for them to this point. I'm just curious as far as just looking at it to kind of nitpick, should they have like a number two more? I'm trying to do quotes to fit inside of here. Like, should they have this secondary, like, this is who we know can get us like 15 to 22 every night, aside from just Halliburton? Or is this like, we're hoping that like we get 8 guys with 15?
Well, if you haven't noticed, not one of Indiana's players have scored 20 points yet in the finals. The high
Right.
scorer was Siakam on night one with 19 thus far,
Yeah.
I mean, and I would certainly, I mean, heck, the Eastern Conference Finals MVP, a made-up award that we've had to look at the past 4 years now. But he won it. He won it over Halliburton, and for good reason. He played out of his mind against New York. It was definitely a good matchup for him. Obviously, the Knicks, the team who had one of the worst interior defenses all year round, Siakam was able to make it look easy. But
Who
I
mentioned
mean,
that?
in this in the
Interior
in the
defense with the Knicks. I think that was episode like 5. We both had talked about that.
oh yeah, I mean, well, you could probably half the episodes that we've recorded.
Yeah, that's true.
We at least we if we haven't mentioned it, we should have just had it scrolling at the top of the screen while making a completely unrelated point.
Yeah.
Just because that's how prevalent it was. I felt like throughout the whole season, I mean, I think I mean the Knicks had a spectacular run this playoffs. The most successful run that they've had in how many years has it been? I mean, it's what is it the first time they made it to the finals in 50 years? I forgot what the number is, which obviously that makes it wild that
Oh, the
that they had to
conference
fire
finals,
Tibbs.
yeah, it was like 72 or 73 that since they made the conference finals or won or something.
Yeah, yeah, unbelievable, unbelievable. So even crazier that they felt the need to fire Tibbs. But I mean, I get it. We won't get into that too much right now. But yeah, I mean, like it's a lot like what the Timberwolves were facing. Just literally nobody can get inside. So I think the Pacers are going to have to be a little bit more creative coming back home here. Um, I think it's a lot of it's just going to have to be quicker decision making. I realize this that the Pacers were not the only team who's faced the same issue. It's kind of like they're human. They're human who the humans who are walking into this OKC building where the crowd is absolutely nuts for this Thunder squad, and it's loud as hell in there, and the Thunder on top of it just feed off of that energy and just put a beating on you all game long. And there's just like a shock element to it. I noticed it for the Nuggets. I certainly noticed it for the Timberwolves. I mean, yeah, you can say you notice it for the Grizzlies for every minute of that series, but every short minute of that series. But that one almost goes without mentioning.
Well,
And
I
there
think
really is
so. I
something
think
different when you walk in Oklahoma City. And so I think the Pacers having to deal with that, it's been a bit of a culture shock to them. I'm curious to see how they adjust coming back home. If maybe they look a little bit more relaxed and the ball starts moving a little bit faster, I think that's what will get them better looks around the hoop.
no. No, yeah, no, I agree with you that there was a video of Kai Sennett who like was talking to one of the fans, like, "Are you guys into basketball?" And she's like, "This is all we got. Like, that's all that's there in Oklahoma City. Like, there's no other sports really around. I don't think so. I don't even know how close like the Oklahoma Sooners are or Oklahoma State from the OKC. So
Yeah.
that's they're going to put all of their energy into the city into that team. So I get it that it's going to be a different feel when people come into that building. So, uh, yeah, I've got
It's
a
definitely
chaos
been like a
here.
March Madness. Like
Yeah,
it's definitely been a March Madness feeling throughout. And I won't even say just for the Thunder. Especially with all the small market teams that have been in this playoffs and been very successful. Um, yeah, all the small market teams that have been in this playoffs have been very successful. I think it's just like one crowd after another that it's like trying to outcompete each other. But yes, OKC, like everybody, it's just like a sea of blue every game, and like it feels like a college game, except everybody's like older. It's like an older crowd, so that makes it kind of goofy. But it's been a lot of fun to watch.
no, I totally get that. Where else do you want to head? Do you want to stick with the finals? Is there anything that you think you want to make a prediction? We didn't really do many predictions. I did at least get the Pacers in six correct. That's the only thing that I can pull away from. I got the Wolves one wrong, so I don't know. You had Thunder Knicks, I think is what you had.
I did. I did. I thought the Knicks were going to pull it off in seven. I didn't realize that series was going to be as convincing for the Pacers as it was. That was really, really crazy. It was Pacers in six. Am I right? Pacers in six. That's right. Yeah. Um, and yeah, and I mean, granted, like that first game could have gone either way. That's not to say that the remaining 5 or 6 games would have gone exactly the same, and therefore it would have gone to seven and would have been New York's chance. But I mean it. Like I said, the Pacers were very, very convincing in that series, and yeah, I don't want to take anything away from them. Obviously they brought some of that magic into Game One of the finals. Um, who, I mean, that first half, like the Pacers looked super flat. They looked like a team that was playing OKC. And then that second half, they just came out with this like burst of energy, and they shot a lot better in part because they had 10 offensive rebounds in the second half in that first game. I think they ended up with like 13 offensive rebounds for the game, and 10 of them came in the second half. And when you tend to cluster those together and are giving yourself those second chance points, and then just like the chaos of it, as like defense is already starting to go one way, but then they have to reorganize. And I think Indiana thrives in those moments, and so that's how they just were slowly able to. It wasn't that slowly; it was more like slowly at first, and then really quickly chip away at that lead, and then just end up with that magical shot, that magical deep 2-pointer that rattled in at the end. Um, but saw a little bit more of what looked like the first 3 quarters in that first game and in the second game. And like I said, this time the Thunder just didn't let up. I would say one more thing I would want to talk about. There's probably a million things I want to talk about. I mean, Caruso has obviously been playing spectacularly. His the 20 to like 27 minutes he gives the Thunder every game every night is, I mean, they're unbelievable. They're almost unmatched. The level of defense that he's able to play, the energy he comes out with, the fact that OKC seemingly wins those minutes every single time, it's just like he's one of the best role players that we've seen in recent years. Just very able, he just fits like a very particular niche. Um, I feel like Aaron Wiggins had an amazing game as well, coming off the bench for OKC. 18 points over 21 minutes, but he really showed off his versatility. I feel like Aaron Wiggins is one of those guys that he started to like really sort of step into his role of being that off the bench microwave scorer. Being like a sort of like a 6 man of the year type of guy. It's which is the prototype tends to be like a smaller, quicker guard who can score in all sorts of ways, and he's definitely that guy. And you see flashes of it throughout the regular season. He'll like drop 30 on a random night. You're like, whoa, who's that guy? That's not. No, Aaron Wiggins. Aaron Wiggins, no relation, huh? Um, and that was on full display though in the second game, and I mean, I don't know that it even needed to be, but it definitely helped solidify that lead, gave him that extra push down the stretch. So hats off to Aaron Wiggins. That was a lot of fun to watch. Curious to see what he does for the next two games. If you believe me, I was gonna say you asked about predictions. I'm sorry, I keep forgetting what the original question is. You asked me about predictions. If you believe me, I thought going into the series, okay, team five. I'm like like this Pacers team. There's something crazy going on here. They're gonna win at least one, and they have. And then after that first game, if you believe me, I have since felt Indiana in six, or sorry, OKC in six. I feel like Indiana's going to get one more chance like that, where they just keep it close enough to show how level-headed they can be down the stretch collectively, which is crazy. I think I mean that's really where the magic is. It's like eight guys who are just like, yep, end of game, like get me in, coach. I want to take the last shot. You don't usually have like eight guys who are like that. So yeah, that's really what's been lighting fire for them in these close games. So yeah, so I thought OKC in five. Now I think OKC in six. I could stick to the five just for I don't know, simplicity's sake.
What you picking?
I'll stick with the five. I'll stick with the five because that was my original thought. I wish I could change it, but I'm not gonna.
Yeah, no, I was hoping you'd say six because I wanted to say five, just of pure T Wolf spite. Like if we went down in five, whoever else they're gonna beat better go down in five as well. Um, like watching the last game, it was close, but then I'm looking at the score 123-107. It's like, and then it was a blowout. Like it's OKC does this. Yes, Indiana comes back, but they can't come back every single time. Like these 20, 15-point leads that are 3 quarters long. And yes, they've done it over and over and over again this season, but like they did it once against the Thunder. I don't think they can do it three more times, much less one more time. So to me, I just feel like the Thunder are going to dominate the next few games um, and just take this one. I'd love to say Pacers in six, but like my gut just says this is going to, the Pacers will make it fun and compelling, but I just don't see them pulling it off, unfortunately. And unfortunately, I'm saying the same thing as you.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. It's crazy that the Pacers won after spitting out what was it, like 28 turnovers in the first game? It was like almost 20 in the first half. And yeah, it was 24. 24. Still a really high number.
It's a lot.
As we've seen throughout the season and now throughout these playoffs, the Thunder just they have so many guys who can seemingly be in two places at once. You heard Anthony Edwards saying that it felt like I was playing against like six or seven guys at one time, um,
Three of
because
them are
they
refs.
because they switched seamlessly, and like every single one of these guys covers a lot of ground, so they're almost defending. I mean, they somehow like stick on their guy out of a double team. It doesn't make sense to me. It's really rare stuff. Um, as you can tell by my little caption, we may end up talking about this season, depending on where OKC goes. Maybe they could keep doing this season after season, but we may end up talking about this as like the best defense ever.
Are we like who is this competing against? Like, is there a Pistons or Spurs team that's the upper echelon of, or Bulls team that like is the most dominant? Obviously, the 72-10 has to be there, but I would assume a like 02 Pistons and like a 06
Yeah, yeah,
Spurs.
yeah. I think you mean '03 Pistons, but yes, yeah, yeah, yeah.
In
You,
that
I mean,
that time frame, I can't.
I think you
Not
literally
that good.
listed the competition. Like you literally just
Okay.
listed off the top of your head. That was pretty spectacular. Like the competition. And I mean, maybe you know what? Maybe we should actually do during the off season. Maybe we could do. I'm not prepared for it right now, but maybe we could do like a little bit of a numbers dive and make our arguments. Well, that'll be our short list. That top four, because those Bulls teams, especially those like late '90s Bulls teams, those were pretty stonewall defenses. But yeah, no, we'll have that episode. That'll be fun. That'll be fun. We should do that in the off season.
best offensive teams ever and best defensive teams ever.
Yeah, I
Top
like that.
5 of each, something like that.
Yeah, I really
So
like
yeah,
that.
this team it's sickening as like I said, as my caption says, as a slighted T-Wolves fan, it's disappointing that this is happening like again, like kind of get the upsurgent team that kind of takes us out, and at least the Thunder are going to go through and win. Like it was unfortunate that the Mavericks didn't last year, so it stung again. But yeah, to me, this is going to be fun. I think the Pacers are a fun team. They've kind of been a team of destiny. So who knows? I hope I'm wrong, and they magically get 3 more game winners, and Halliburton has 4 game winners and wins Finals MVP or something. Who knows? But I to me, that's going to be fun to watch tonight.
Yes, yes, which it will be at 8:30, still on ABC. I resent that a little bit because you have to watch those games live or wait till the next day, basically. I don't stay up till like 2 in the
Yeah,
morning to like
three
rewatch the
hours
game.
later.
So yeah. I don't stay up that late to rewatch the game. So unless I get woken up at 4 in the morning, that's perfect. But yeah, so you have to watch them live, which is fine. But yeah, it's home game in Indiana. I think it's gonna be. You saw it. Not just for those who were facing OKC, but am I mistaken that the T Wolves won Game 3 of last series, their first home game? Is that right? I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
I think so. I could try to look it up real quick, but yes,
No,
that was the game
you're
they
right.
won. And I felt like it was sort of the reverse situation for OKC. Like they had a little bit of away court shock going into Minnesota. I think they're going to feel the same thing in Indiana. I mean, again, we're talking about like small market teams who just like absolutely adore these squads and franchises who have tried to do a lot for their cities thus far. And they're not really like we can quit and wait a few years and bomb a few years and bounce right back with the same fan base. They haven't been doing that to their fans. They've been trying to stay competitive. Minnesota maybe not the most successful at doing it, but but
I
yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
no, I would say I will. This is not important, but it's like as far as, and I've said it all year. Visually, the Pacers have been one of my favorite teams. Their courts, whether it's been for the NBA Cup or just their regular season, like alternate courts, and their jerseys. So for me, I've loved watching Pacer games throughout the year, and that has been noted throughout this podcast. So to me, it's definitely, and I'm curious and excited to see what jerseys and court, because I think that's the other thing too that we haven't talked about was there was no Larry O'Brien on the court in Oklahoma City. Do you think they're gonna like all of a sudden Adam Silver's calling in an audible and putting that in I wanted to say like the TD field house or whatever it is. I know they've moved, but are they going to put a new floor down in Indiana?
They
Like,
should. They should. Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you want that to be
and this is
stamped on your
Indiana, like
floor?
the home of basketball. Like there should
Yeah.
be the
I'm
finals should still
saying
be
I'm,
on the
I'm
court.
saying this for both squads. Why wouldn't you want that? This
Yeah, I
is
don't
like a rare
understand.
moment. I mean, I think OKC has a runway to be a really dominant franchise for like the next decade or so. It's absolutely absurd the position that they're in. But there's no saying that they're going to get back to this moment. So why wouldn't
Yeah,
you want to jump at the opportunity to light up the floor with a big gold shiny trophy to say like we're in the finals. I mean, I know in game 2 they gave like a pity little like they do with the first down line. They like threw a couple little trophies
no,
on there that were just sort of like
no. To
tossed
me, it's
there.
like as a marketing guy, you want to have these images for the future, like to showcase like our arena, our team was a part of the finals in this year, or like we're a finals. Whether you win or lose, it just showcases like you're the team that was in it. Like it just gives this prestige. I think that you just lost out on at least for 2 games, and maybe they'll bring it back or and get smart. But yeah, to me, that was one of those things that was going around discussions of like this looked like a regular season game. Like the NBA Cup looked more fun and more prestigious. It's like we did all the cool stuff then, and now we're not going to do it for the finals. Like this is supposed to be special. So like, why aren't you treating it as such?
Maybe they were going throwback, right? Maybe they just wanted to look like a game in the '80s where the floor didn't change, except the fans just look a lot more banded together. They thought the fans would do all the talking for
Throwback.
them aesthetically.
Yeah, I
Or maybe
guess
they just weren't thinking. I think somebody dropped the ball on that. I really do.
probably.
Whether it be the Thunder franchise or the people who were supposed to prepare those floor for them in time just couldn't get the job done. I don't know. Maybe there's a hidden story there that they just didn't want to throw the
We'll get
hardwood
in that.
people into the floor.
Yeah, we'll break that down. Some investigative Bucket Bros journalism. We'll figure that out. We'll get to the bottom of it. Where
Well,
else?
even if
Anything else? Go
I
ahead.
was just gonna close with even if the style points don't add up for the fashion and the hardwood floor, if nothing else, once Indiana gets rolling, one of the more fun teams to watch in general. If they're not hitting a brick wall named Lou Dort
Yeah.
or a
Which if
tower
you
named Chet Holmgren.
Yeah. All right. Well, I still have one last thing before we go,
Oh,
and
you know
that
what? You
is,
know what? Actually, can I ask one more
oh,
question?
yeah, yeah. Do
So,
you
so
have trivia or just a regular question? Is this a
no,
question
no,
of
no, no,
any
no.
significance?
I'm sticking with the finals here. One more thing that's been on my mind, and I wish something I wish that we didn't have our hiatus for, because I've been thinking about it, is who I would consider Shea's co-star in this series for OKC, and
I was going to
who I
ask you
think it is
something
going to
similar.
be moving forward. So, well, I'll be brief then, because one thing, because obviously throughout the past couple of years, J Dub, Jalen Williams has gotten the attention, and they've gotten some like MJ, Scottie Pippen comparisons, which have been fair, I guess. And I will certainly say that I still think Jalen Williams is a more versatile defender than Chet Holmgren. He'd be a guy on defense who I think would be a tougher loss, even though Chet Holmgren is one of the best rim protectors in the league, which is not always essential to having a good defense. But overall, I think what I've seen from Chet, maybe save game one of this finals, what I've seen from Chet lately has been very motivating, or has been very reassuring. It's been motivating in the sense that I know that he's like the more talented player with a basketball in his hands as compared to J Dub, but we're actually seeing it start to play out. And he only got 28 minutes in game two. With that, he was able to score 15 points on 13 field goal attempts. He had a block shot. I'm telling you, they are ripping block shots away from this guy. I swear he gets like 2 or 3 a game, and they only credit him with one. I don't know where that's happening. I'm almost positive I watched him block 2 shots in the first quarter in game two. So I don't know how he gets credited with just one here. But I,
What?
I feel like he's coming up with these spectacular plays, and he's been staying pretty consistent throughout these playoffs. And I mean, I really like him as like the up and coming co-star for Shea. I have more confidence for him being like the number 2 guy on that team lately than I do for Jalen Williams. That was my big bold statement I wanted to say.
No, and I was going to ask you about Jalen Williams just as far as do you think he, like, pretty much in the same sense, is he essential as a number two? Um, but that took me off of what I was thinking with Chet. Shoot. Where was I going? That's too many things, and now I have somebody meowing at me.
Mm-hmm.
I apologize. So
Wasn't me this time.
no, that was her. We can jump into, unless you have anything else, because whatever I was going to say probably wasn't too important. Do you have any other topics or tidbits you want to get into before I have my last little bit?
Do you want to jump into the giant pool of sharks or piranhas or whatever you want to say who just are
Gas
chomping at the bit
bags?
to there you go, just about the KD trade chatter. Did you want to jump in any of that?
It's whatever it is. I'm a Wolves fan, so obviously it's like I'd love to see Ant with his idol play, and we would need a score. Granted, it's like I would only want to give it up if we could like only lose DiVincenzo out of it and get picks somehow. Like obviously that's
Mhm.
impossible, and I know like I want to keep the team that we have and like run it back, but it'd be nice if we had another premier scoring piece that could be another option that's going to be more assertive when needed. I think that's one thing. When I went up to Minnesota, I was actually in Minnesota for the night of Game 5 when they bowed out, and kind of the thing that I kept hearing from so many of them was just, I guess, after Game 3, even after the win, it was like that was everything they had. And so it just towards the end of games 4 and 5, and I shouldn't even say the ends of the beginning of Game 5, I could was getting texts just about the effort and energy levels of the Wolves. So to me, it's I would love to see someone that you can rely on like a Durant to put on a wing with an Edwards. Obviously, I would love to have it with a Randall too, but I don't know if that's going to be possible. Um, I, and granted, it's all up to Julius, anyways, of what he wants to do. And there's lots of chatter with him going to Detroit and whatnot. So and yeah, and I know everybody. The stuff I saw on social was that the deal of the Spurs was already done for Durant, and that the Suns and Spurs were going to announce it like next weekend or so, or coming up here soon. So I think there's lots of possibilities. It's going to be cool wherever he ends up, but obviously he's going to be what 38, 39. So who knows how much of a piece, how much is he going to play? He's had injuries the last few years. So, how much of a risk are you willing to send out assets for this aging player? Yes, if he's healthy, he's going to be the piece that you might need, but is he going to stay healthy and be that and be able to produce for extended minutes or whatever it might be?
Yeah. Well, okay. So he's 36 right now, and
Okay.
he will be 37 um, before the season starts. So his age 37 season, and and yeah, I mean the big question is like it's not just that he's aging and that his role therefore is going to be limited compared to what he was throughout the rest of his career, but which is understandable, but it's the contract that you have to pay him over the next 2 to 3 years to keep him around. And I mean, I guess if I were to bet on anybody in their late 30s having a contract that's very expensive but still aging well, it would be somebody like KD. But it's still going to be a lot of money, and it handicaps you. And the Wolves are already tight on cash in terms of where they are flirting with the second apron. I'm pretty sure they're projected to be a second apron team. Am I mistaken there? Pretty sure they're projected to be a second apron team if they don't make some changes. And so and certainly the Suns, if I'm not mistaken, are a second apron team, and so they cannot. I mean the rules that they're up against is like the Suns have to take on they can't aggregate players and they have to take on more money than they're sending out. So I think that just by the very nature of the salaries that the T Wolves have to trade, it's like Randall's out the door. Unless Gobert's out the door, but I just see
That's
that
I
that's
was
a
gonna
very
say it would have to be a Gobert included in the trade somehow. But like you said, if the Phoenix can't take on that, why would they take unless they're gonna change up? Yeah, to me, it doesn't make sense as far as it it makes more sense whether it's a Houston or San Antonio or Mavericks, somewhere in Texas, like we mentioned. Like to me, those are going to be the three spots that make the most sense, that have the most capital. Where I don't I can see another like a Knicks or somebody else reaching and being dumb, and so and just like especially now the Knicks is like who knows is Dolan back into it now that this I saw the thing was like he wasn't a part of the Knicks until like the Sphere in Vegas was done, and now he's back, and the Knicks were all of a sudden hot, and then they lose, so he fires Tibbs, and so now could he do something dumb and just all of a sudden pay a bunch of money to get KD in the house to sell tickets at the Garden? Who knows? But to me, of one of the three teams in Texas is what would make the most sense and be the smartest for both sides, I think.
Yeah, there is just like between like the T Wolves, the Knicks, teams that have already sort of stripped what they have to trade for other recent trades. What you'd have to give up and what you'd be leaving yourself with for a guy who is just essentially going to age out over the next two. Like the window just shortens so
Yeah.
much. It's part of the big controversy around the Luka trade. It's like, yeah, you traded for another good player, but you shortened our window drastically. And look at this guy's already hurt, and his co-star's hurt, and he's not playing this year. So now what are we gonna do? And so it's like your room for error is just so small, and it's like if you don't win over those 2 years that you've given yourself, it's a bust, and then you're in the trenches for a few years afterwards just to have made that trade. So I mean, I guess it's fun to watch. It's fun to talk about, but I truly hope that no franchise just completely bombs themselves to land a guy like KD. I wish he could just magically end up in a place that fits for him, and we could all just enjoy it. But no, I mean, there's going to be some controversy around it. So the greater likelihood is that the Suns are going to want to take on some draft capital, and so therefore those, as you said, like the Spurs and the Rockets, like immediately hit the top of the list. I don't know. That's my 2 cents on that. I'm trying to think of who the fifth team was that everybody was talking about, but it has already slipped my mind.
Lakers. I'm sure it was Lakers.
Yeah,
Probably the Lakers.
right? No, I mean the Lakers. For similar reasons, there's not much they could do either. I don't think they have a package to give for KD, and that would be a heck of a lot of money going out the door in order to do that. As much money as the Lakers have coming in, they tend to not overspend on a season to season basis. They tend to not have the biggest outgoing salary in any given season. And it's just because they don't have the richest owners. That's a big part of it.
That makes sense. Ready for some trivia?
Let's do it.
All right. Let me get the right one up. This guy. All right, it is time for some trivia by T4 Medical. Your local, for all of your medical needs. I'm going to slaughter everything, Bobby. You can fill it in better.
Yeah. Oh, here. Let's do it. Let's do it. Trivia brought to you by T4 Medical. Staffing you with practitioners in central and western North Carolina and central Illinois, for your long-term care facilities. T4 Medical.
Bravo. All right, so we have talked about how the Pacers have been ridiculous and have had here's one. It's not quite getting struck by lightning twice. Your odds of that happening are 0.00065. Like for the finals, for them to have, what was it? All four Indiana comebacks the team have seen, they had a 2.1% chance of winning to coming back. Can you figure out what, and I'll give you two chances because obviously this is pretty impossible, but the mathematical probability of pulling off four comebacks with win probabilities of 2.1% or less is astronomical. Can you give me what the range of that is? One in what?
I think I actually saw this one. So I might give you a really good guess. Is it 1 in 100,000?
No.
How off am I? Am I off? How many zeros?
Quite a bit.
1 in 10 million?
Ooh, since I said I was only going to give you two chances, that's your final chance. So womp. But you got halfway there. It's 1 in 20 million was the chances of that happening. If these were independent events, the Pacers have essentially defied the laws of basketball probability this entire postseason. So it has been pretty amazing. And it's Halliburton. It's not just like the team. It's only been one person that's been hitting all of these shots, which has been nuts. So obviously Naismith had that one run of like 8 or 9 threes in the one game where he went ballistic.
Well,
10 or 11,
it was
wasn't it?
like it was seven in it was seven in a very short period of time, but six in the fourth quarter alone,
Yeah.
which was absolutely absurd. I mean, his release just quickened, everything aligned. He looked like he was Steph Curry for a moment there, or maybe I'll give him Klay
Yeah.
Thompson, like a Klay Thompson-esque quarter.
Yeah. Either way, it was pretty remarkable. Good job to them. And so I just wanted to make sure that was dropped in because I think I saw something similar, like you mentioned. It was the odds were crazy. So, well, that's it for everybody. We hope you go and watch. Like you said, what is it? ABC at
8:30 Eastern time, yeah.
8
ABC
Eastern
8:30
time.
Eastern time, 7:30 Central.
And hopefully I have this posted before then. So let's cross our fingers and hope that YouTube works nice for me. So until then, this has been the Bucket Bros. Swoosh.
Ciao, everybody.